Okay, today's guest is Shraddha Kotari. Shraddha studied
Hi.
in St. Stephen's in Delhi. Is it in Delhi? Did her
Yes.
BA honors in economics and then subsequently worked in investment banking at Bank of America Merrill Lynch for close to 4 years.
Yep.
Then went to Kellogg and graduated from Kellogg with an MBA and is now working in product management, or sorry, product operations at eBay.
Yep.
We're going to cover the entire application journey. We're going to cover what the journey was like during the MBA itself, the first 2 years, and how everybody else can emulate that success.
Yes,
Shraddha,
myself.
welcome.
Thank you.
All
Sorry
right,
about the glitch before this.
no worries. Let's talk about what I know we're pressed for time, so let's talk about the motivations. Let's dive right into, if you can recall, what the motivations were to apply for an MBA. It looked like you graduated from a pretty successful college. We're doing investment banking, which is typically a lot of people's dream coming out of college in India. Let's talk about what made you want that MBA and get out of investment banking at that time.
Yeah, so as you said, like graduated from St. Stephen's, econ, and then I went into banking. Banking at that point was a very hot sector and also still very new. And this you're talking 2006. So I
Gotcha.
saw the high and the lows. Like I had a really good 4 year run there. Saw the boom, saw the crash, survived the pink slip, thankfully. Post my associate promotion, I think things had pretty much slowed down in banking, and two things were pretty clear to me at that
Mm-hmm.
point. I was like, 24, 25. That one, I did not want to continue investment banking. I
Mm-hmm.
just didn't see too much of a culture fit for myself. And two, I was pretty clear that I wanted a global career. Like, this
Okay.
had gone, my schooling, undergrad, everything was in India. And I wanted to transition to more of a global career, as I said.
Okay.
So MBA was always on my radar. And while I was in investment banking, I dabbled with there's a Reliance Dhirubhai Ambani scholarship. So I
Okay.
just randomly applied for it and I got a shortlist. So
Okay.
that for me was my first inspiration. And I took my GMAT in a hurry out of an application, which is mistake number one. Never just take the GMAT in a hurry.
Okay.
And I bombed it the first time.
What did you get the
And
first
I
time?
did no comments.
You know,
I
I
didn't do
got I got 490 in my I got 490 in my practice test. If you read the article, which many people have, it was hurtfully devastating. But
No,
my
so this was my 10-day or 2 week preparation. So seriously, it was really bad. Like
fair enough.
something I
Okay,
want to
let's.
just forget.
What was your
And
great GMAT score then?
so my grade GMAT was 720, which
Perfect.
for a non-engineer I was very happy about.
Well
But
done.
anyway, so basically I took my GMAT. So no, sorry. So I wanted to go to the have a global career. So I decided to quit and just go travel. So I wanted my free time to figure things out. So, but one step you missed between banking and Kellogg was like I went and worked with a nonprofit for a year because I just
Okay,
wanted a completely different perspective.
I see
And
that.
it was a phenomenal nonprofit in Bombay. So
Okay,
where I met a lot of expats as well. So through them, I got even more,
this is
excited about
Dasra, right?
That's right. Yes.
What does
So
Dasra do, incidentally?
so Dasra is a strategic philanthropy foundation, and at least it
Okay,
was at that point, and it also does sort of capacity building advisory, and it helps nonprofits scale. And it was
gotcha.
started by two ex-bankers from the US, or both Indians,
Got it.
and one was a HBS grad. So it was a grassrootsy nonprofit organization. And we worked again. I worked with them for a year, and that made me even more sure that I wanted to come and like get exposed to that American classroom. So during my Dasra days, while I was there, I started my application process,
Okay.
and I was one of those people who, I think a lot of times when we're applying, we think that okay, I only want to go to the U.S. if I'm going to Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, and like this, two, three more schools. I'll confess I was one of them.
Okay.
Um, and so I did that. I did the Howard, Stanford, Wharton, Kellogg,
But
Booth.
before we go to the application process, I don't want to brush aside two very important things that you gave in terms of advice for future students. A, apply for scholarships. I had no idea there were scholarships. Trust me.
Yep.
We'll talk about this Reliance Dhirubhai Ambani scholarship, what it was for, and what got you to apply there very, very briefly. But the second piece of advice is don't take GMAT in a rush.
Yep,
Be a little more
totally.
be a little more strategic and prepare for it, especially when you know you're going ahead. You don't need to get into MBA just this year. Everybody has this false set of constraints. Oh, my family, otherwise I'm going to get married. Like I've heard a lot of people say this. Otherwise, I have to get married this year. If like both men and women, by the way,
Yep,
else I
yep.
have to take an MBA. No, don't set that false constraint. Prepare right, prepare well, and then apply. Let's talk about the scholarship. How did you apply for that scholarship, and how did you figure that there were scholarships available?
So I wasn't applying to scholarships in general. I can't remember who it was at that point, but I think a friend of mine just told me that hey, there's this thing which and the Dhirubhai scholarship is specifically for Stanford. So I
Ah,
think they select I don't know a lot whatever 2,000 something people apply. They select 50 people,
okay.
of which based on like some essays, and then they interview a few people and they shortlist a few, and then I think this is a while back, almost like 7 years back. They basically it gives you like a fully paid MBA or some perks like that.
Wow.
So I was like, sure. So I just
Any
like wrote
MBA
an
of
essay.
choice, not just Stanford.
No, no, Stanford. It's only for Stanford.
Ah. Hmm.
So I'd spoken to someone who did go through that program through a friend, and he obviously spoke highly. So I was like, let me apply. Um, but that didn't work out for me. But I'd
Of course.
anyway done it in the middle of my banking where I just told my boss, hey, I need 2 weeks off to go apply for this scholarship. I
Right.
took my MBA, bombed it, came back, and I was like, okay, not happening, continue my work.
Understood.
But so yeah, so that was round one. Then I applied a second time when I took my time with it. I was working side by side. So it wasn't like I'd quit my job and prep. Like I was working side by side, but I gave it a little more time and
Understood.
prepared more strategically to use your words. And for GMAT specifically, I think it's important to practice and like, it's about, it's not like, yes, you can be a brain who can just walk in and crack
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
but anybody else can also do it as long as
Yeah.
you're just like practicing regularly. So
Yeah.
that worked out better for me. And yeah, then I was talking about the school. So I did the Harvard, Stanford, Wharton. I applied to Kellogg. I applied to Booth. And I think one thing that really helped me through the process was um, talking to people from all of these schools.
Hmm.
Like just reaching out to alums to learn about the schools and like,
Hmm.
so it doesn't become just like a line in your essay,
Hmm.
but you really understand that, okay, this is what the school has to offer. Does it match what I
Hmm.
want out of it?
Hmm.
So I'll give you an example. At one point that I was picking between Booth and Kellogg,
Hmm.
and for me, like I'd come from investment banking and I didn't
Hmm.
want to go back into finance or into the world of bankers.
Hmm.
So that was a relatively easier choice for me when I was
Hmm.
picking between the two.
Hmm.
And in fact, I'd reached out to some of the alums from Booth.
Okay.
And one of them very gave me like alums are the best people. Seriously, no
Yeah.
matter what, like they're so helpful. Yes, little pat on the
Yes.
back. Um, no, but I'm just like jokes apart. He was like a very senior established alum, and he kind of heard me out, and he's like, "What are your reasons for wanting an MBA?" And I gave him my reasons and culture, etc., where I do well. And his recommendation was go to Booth. I mean, go to Kellogg.
Hmm.
And so just talking to a lot of people helped me make that decision much easier when I got to the point of actually having to make a choice. But even in like writing your essays, it's important to be authentic. That's another piece of advice. A lot of times people hire consultants.
Hmm.
Again, no disrespect or any of that,
Yeah.
but it's really authentic in your essays.
Hmm.
And by that, what I mean is one size fits all will definitely not work for you. Like
Hmm.
if you write an essay for Stanford about, even if it's like, what's your career trajectory,
Hmm.
right? Like, what do you want to do the same thing in Harvard? I mean,
Hmm.
these are people who are replicating from
Oh,
essays. So
sorry,
that
we
can
lost the
sometimes,
connection. We lost the connection there. You said you can't have the same.
you
Um,
should not.
yeah, exactly.
I mean, your goals can be the same, yes, of course, but like you need to be authentic in your essays and like tune it to the need one it's all for every school.
Understood. Oh man, we're having a lot of network connectivity issues. Okay, hopefully this stays true. Um, let's talk. Let's talk about how you went through the research. You were telling me off air that most Indians make a cardinal mistake of just looking at brand and applying to the top 10. Let's talk
Yes.
about what your lesson was around that and what you recommend for students. How should they be able to pick the schools?
As I said, offline, there is a tendency based on thinking of like where will I get the most bang for my buck, ROI. What's the brand? You tend to look at the latest rankings of the top 4 or 5 schools, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, let me apply to all. Um, the advice I would give there is yes, of course, brand does matter,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a question of where you're planning to be after school, where purely by the brand. But more than brand matters is your culture fit. Like one
Mm-hmm.
of the key lessons for me post Kellogg was that I was able to make a lot more of my MBA experience because the
Mm-hmm.
culture was right for me.
Mm.
I don't think I would have survived in a very crazy, cutthroat environment, the really friendly environment of Kellogg. And I think it made me realize those are the kind of environments I thrive in.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else like makes me a little more mellow, I would say. So
Okay.
it made me value, like, I may have gone into Kellogg thinking, oh my God, I didn't make it to number 1, 2, 3, so fine, I'll take Kellogg. But I came out of it feeling, yes, like these people
This was a
also see the
perfect fit.
culture fit, and this was the best, like, it was the best decision for me. So to your point on advice, do your homework on culture. Don't just go by rankings. Try and really understand what schools are about, what you're looking for. A lot of people, I think we were talking about this offline as well, don't have legitimate reasons for wanting an MBA. I was one of them, I'll be honest, right?
Hey,
My
so was
family
I.
told me you're going for because I told them, I said, I'm going for the experience. My family used to joke with me that it's a very expensive experience.
Yeah.
Uh, but I was like, you know what? I will go. I mean, that was one thing of like my pre experience. Like, okay, I will save money if I have to, and I will fund it. I will take loans, whatever. But it's an experience. Like, you are your choices.
Right.
So that was a choice I made, and I have never regretted it. So yeah, like, yeah.
So let's talk about. I want to talk about the culture, but before I talk about the culture at Kellogg, let's talk about the application process itself.
Yep.
Um, you applied to many of the top 10 schools, if not all top 10. You said in passing that you spoke with students or alumni from each of these schools. Talk to me about the effort that you put. How many students, how many alumni members did you reach out to, and how many did you speak with? What did you learn in terms of tactics that you can share with people in order to get the most from these students and alumni when future students reach out?
Um, One, like I applied to 5 or 6 schools, not 10. So we're thankfully a
Okay.
little more focused. That's the number one. Don't carpet bomb.
Yeah.
Be selective about your schools because you'll just
Yeah.
drive yourself crazy applying to all schools.
Yeah.
Um, Two, in terms of alums, I think like your friends and family, etc., comes in really handy. I had someone really like a mentor in the process because I was asking myself a lot of these questions of why do I really want to do this?
Mm-hmm.
So he was helping me think through the value of an MBA, and he was like a cheerleader for me in terms of, yes, this is why MBA makes sense. So
Mm-hmm.
he was just instrumental overall in like my goal of an MBA. But other than that, I had like through my family or friends, I'd networked with a few alums at each school who
Mm-hmm.
I would first have a conversation with to understand about their experience. So it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a here tell me three classes I can write about because I can research
Yes.
it online.
Yes.
It's really about
So
was it
important.
the totally because a lot of
So
people time a
important.
lot of times they're like checklist. Okay, I've mentioned Professor X, I've mentioned Class Y.
Oh
Guess
my
what?
God.
Every other applicant's writing the same thing. So I basically would chat with them about their experiences, share my reasons for wanting my MBA or picking that school, and get their candid feedback on whether they think it's a legitimate reason and if they think it's a right decision, right? And if not that, then I would draft my essays and get it to like a final read. That's another mistake people make where and I'm just going to say this, I've seen this especially from students from India, because obviously I don't know students from other countries in this capacity, but people have a very strong sense of entitlement about like how
Yes.
random people are supposed to write their first version of their essays. Like
Yes.
I've had random people reach out to me on LinkedIn and say, "Oh, hey, can you help me write my essays for X?" And I'm like,
Yeah,
"Who are
it's
you?"
incredible. It's
And it's not, it's like it's a little unprofessional to kind of behave like that, right? Even if my own sister were to, or sibling were to come and say, "Hey, write my essays for me," I'd say, "Okay, do some work, and then
yes.
kind of I'll help you do it." My sisters helped me a lot,
Yes.
but it was like, "Okay, you do your thinking, come back, and then they'll help you edit it."
Yes.
So don't do that with alums, because especially if these are people who can help you,
Yeah, they can
it
also
will
harm
kind
your
of
chances.
that can harm your chances, right? They
Yes.
could be your future interviewers or whatever.
Yes.
So you don't want things off on the wrong foot. Um,
I'll
yeah, did
give a
I answer
little.
your question?
Yes, you did. I'll give a little insight, and I want to tease out all the points that you mentioned. As a member of the Ross admissions committee, typically, let's say I have a bad experience when somebody reaches out to me. Guys from India, girls typically are okay. I don't want to be gender specific, but a lot of guys do ask that. Hey, can you review my essay? No, I'm not going to review your essay, right? I'm not going to write your essay. I'm not going to review your essay. But if I
Yep.
have a bad experience as an alumni interacting with a potential future student, I can actually pass on the feedback to the admissions committee saying, hey, I spoke with this person. I don't think it was a great fit.
Yeah.
They may apply to the school. So please be mindful of how you interact with these students, alumni. The biggest
Yeah.
insight that I got from that, you almost prescribed a mechanism for people to network, not just before business school, but even during and after business school, which is ask about their experience, share your motivations, and get their opinion on
Yeah.
whether they think, based on their experience, your motivations align with that school.
Totally.
It's almost the best prescription where they're welcomed into the conversation. It's beautiful.
Absolutely. Thank you. And it honestly goes back to like authenticity, right? It's
Yeah.
not just like what you write in your essays, but it's really your reason. And
Yes.
honestly, if you're spending 200, 250K on your MBA,
Yeah.
it's good to have your solid reasons. Like I'm on the Kellogg watching, sorry, but I have, in my interview, when I'm interviewing candidates, I candidly ask them, what is your reason, not the essay version, but your genuine reason for wanting to do an MBA?
Yeah.
And I have actually advised people not to go to an MBA.
Yeah.
Very solid job. They want to come back to the same job. And I'm like, realize that you're going to take a 2-year hit.
I think we
A
just lost the
company to do
connection.
sponsor your exact MBA.
I just think we lost the connection there
I'm
for a
still
second.
here.
Yeah, yeah, you're good. I want to make sure that the recording holds. But yeah, okay.
Yep.
So yes, I think that's really sound advice. I was unfortunately one of them that knew that, hey, I was in consulting and I wanted to go back into consulting.
Yeah.
So fortunately, it was the right move for me. So don't discount everybody that wants to go back to the same career. But I knew that my intention was to take that 2-year break in order to round up my skills before I went back. But yes, completely agree on most of your
Great
advice.
disclaimer.
Yeah.
Great disclaimer. And I guess just to kind of, again, put a disclaimer to my disclaimer, what I mean by that is a lot of times, there are jobs which are difficult to get pre-MBA.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like for product management, if we take product management, right, there's some people who get a break very early, like coming out of Stanford or through something, they'll get their, right,
Yeah.
their pre-MBA life.
Yeah.
And then suddenly they want to go to an MBA and then come back to a certain thing. A lot of times it doesn't work out as well as they may think it may.
Yeah.
You have to take a few hits, you have to take a few, like, like a year or two.
Yeah.
It becomes like a 2-year gap of sorts. So all I'm saying is like have a very solid reason for doing an MBA. Don't
right.
just do it because you think it's the thing to do.
I completely agree. I wanna just make sure that our connection stays okay, and now it's okay. Otherwise, I would have disconnected and called back. So we apologize to everybody that's listening, but that's how it goes in life. Let's talk about the culture at Kellogg. What did you learn about the culture at Kellogg while you were applying and subsequently during your 2 years there? And why did you think it's a good fit? And what can you share about the culture? If you can give a couple of instances, it's okay if you take a few moments to think through it. But give us a few instances of what the culture is like so that we can actually visualize or live and breathe it without ever having gone there.
Couple of things there. So one was just the collaboration across the board, which was just like Kellogg, from the way classes are held to, how you work in groups, to the student-led life, to the social work balance, was super collaborative and super fun. So that's like, it really makes the MBA experience like really fun. Second, it was truly very diverse. And don't quote me on the statistics, but at that point, like 40% of the class was international versus I think on average, like other schools, it's like 30 to 35.
That's right.
So it was one diversity, not just of the ethnicity, but also diversity of cultures, because, as there are stereotypes, like, Harvard has a certain crowd, Wharton has finance people, Chicago has, also finance people. I'm just saying all stereotypes. Yeah. For Kellogg, it was truly, a lot of people had come from, a very mixed background. So you'd see everything from like consultants to marketing to my own classmate. Like I had an Icelandic handball player. I had a guy who was like from Wall Street, gone to play poker professionally in Vegas. And we had like, it was like ridiculously amazing, really amazing. So going back to culture, it was so diverse and, just learned so much more from the people. It was phenomenal. And the third one for me with Kellogg was, Kellogg again is known in general to be a marketing school, but I was amazed by just like, for me, like I was someone who was looking to go into general management.
Okay.
Like I loved the finance faculty. I loved the marketing faculty, strategy, leadership. I mean, it was just so well balanced. Like it was so well rounded. The curriculum there and they were also willing to help, going back into the culture and collaboration. So those three, I think, were for me like three big aha factors for me at that point, and also made it like a very unique culture to be in.
Okay, I'm looking at your I'm looking at your LinkedIn profile, and I see something. You had an expedition to Patagonia. Let's talk about what that was very briefly, because that seems very interesting for an experience from Kellogg. And then I want you to talk about the club activities that you were part of. You were part of the leadership of several club activities, which is integral to what some of business school life is when people choose to take on some leadership experience. Can you talk through some of that within Kellogg?
Sure. So as I said, I went to an MBA for the experience. So I made use of every opportunity I got to travel and meet people. I'm not someone who can do a very big group thing. I like to form smaller, closer relationships. So I traveled at every opportunity, and Kellogg gives you enough opportunities, self-led or beyond, this expedition being one of them. I did a lot of different clubs. Like I did a few, and we can go into the experience. I did something on the entrepreneurship side. I wanted to learn about wine, moving to America, so I joined the wine club.
I see that. I see VP Events Cork and Screw.
Yeah, so I did that because for me, it was just all about learning new things that I hadn't done before or meeting new people. So now going specifically to the leadership expedition, now this was just me and a few of my friends. They're like, oh, hey, we thought it was going to be like a camping thing. It was like a leadership expedition with the National Outdoor Leadership School to Patagonia. Like, sounds good, let's go. It was over spring break. And we went there and we were just left in the middle of nowhere. It was 10 of us with like 2 instructors, and we had to hike through from the Chilean side. And it was like a real life leadership experience where first day they coach you. Day 2, it's like you're broken into group. We were 10, so we were broken into 2 teams of 5. And each day one person had to lead the team from point A to point B. We were carrying like 55-pound backpacks each. We were 2 women and like 8 guys. It's like you're carrying your food, stoves. You have a point X and point Y. You just have to somehow get from one point to the other. There you just have maps, no GPS, nothing. So it was like a real life leadership
So it's
experience.
a lesson on leadership and communication
Oh,
and taking the team
communication,
to its goal.
teamwork, working together. And this was Patagonia, like a very barren part of Patagonia, super scary in ways I wouldn't have even thought of. Definitely one of the most adventure, and I consider myself pretty adventurous. One of the most adventurous and crazy things I've done in my life. But the bonds I formed on that trip and like those things were phenomenal. So again, another little gem for business school, travel. Okay, save money if you have to before. Travel because that's the best way you will get to know people.
Understood. You also took on leadership activities at clubs. What part did you think it played in recruiting, if at all? I know typically students who go into schools, the initial question they have is like a fear of missing out. They don't know if being a part of leadership of clubs will help with recruiting. Did it?
Again, I think I'm the wrong person to ask. I did it for the experience and like just
Understood.
because I wanted. But like I knew people who were on the consulting clubs and those kind of things. Because that gives you an opportunity to be a contact for a company and become their strategic. So if you're very strategic about your career move and etc., yes, these things can play out. But it really, honestly, the whole MBA is just about what you want out of it.
I
Like
agree.
it's like if there are 400 people in your class, each of those 400 people will have a different experience.
Yes,
No two people will have the same experience, and like you craft your own experience.
I agree.
You can
In
spend it
fact,
in FOMO. You can spend it to your question of like first 90 days. I know you asked me offline. Like you could spend those 90 days saying, I don't care. I'm just gonna,
do
like I'm
anything.
fully sponsored by my company. I'm just gonna party.
Yeah.
Or I'm like, oh, I'm an international student and I don't know what I'm doing. Oh my God, what have I signed up for? And
Yes.
then you're just like week 2, you start recruiting and you're like, this never ends. And you're
Yes.
panicking. Or you're like, oh my God, the academics is crazy. I need to get an A in everything. Like
Yes.
first year, first 90 days, just go by and like figuring out what even matters to you. You'll instantly get taken in by recruitment. And
Yes.
that's one thing about MBA. You don't know a lot of it until you really get there.
Yes.
So I'm answering all your questions one by one.
That's
So
okay. And the attempt of this series is to actually educate people. I don't want people to be in a position like I was, or perhaps you were, where we did not know what to expect in the first 90 days. As
yes,
people who've grown up in India or studied in India, our education system is completely different. It's
yep,
very academic focused, with its own time for recruiting, which does not overlap with academics. It is completely the opposite in the US. Everything, you're immersed in everything from the beginning, and you need to do well at everything. And that
yep,
creates chaos. Let's go through some more of the first 90 days that you experienced within Kellogg during your first year. Uh,
yep.
Talk about the role of interacting with the seniors at MBA 2s, as we call them at Ross. They typically play a pretty heavy part. And then talk about the recruiting experience or what you paid more focus to.
Yeah. So it was first talking about this, MBA twos or your seniors. For me, like my class, like when I was in my first year, they were phenomenal. Like some of them were like totally my rocks in helping me, and a lot of them were the Indian, the Indian community.
Yeah,
Again, the Indian community can be really hit or miss,
yeah,
being candid, from
yeah,
batch to batch. The batch
yeah.
ahead of me was like I really got along really well with them. Um, and I had a lot of friends who really helped me just like help figure out, navigate through some of those things. Um, in terms of the first 90 days in recruiting, yes, it really hits you. Like you've just about gotten oriented and started, and then suddenly you'll see like swag in your locker from like McKinsey Bay and BCG. I
Yes,
didn't know a lot of things. I didn't know going into an MBA that there are waves of recruitment. Like first
yes,
banks come and go, then there's consulting, then these other companies. And there are, 40% on campus, 60% of the class gets jobs offline, like, off
yeah,
campus through their own
yeah,
initiatives. I didn't know like most of the companies with just a switch of US authorization required,
yes,
your possibility of job options gets restricted to like I'm just putting numbers there, but like if there are 100 jobs open to the world, it's
yeah.
down to 30 for you, right?
That's the
So
perfect number actually.
I didn't kind of know any of that going in. I remember week 1, like a lot of us go, especially from India, go in with a starry-eyed thing of like, oh, we want to go into private equity and VC after business school, right?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
being honest, right? Like
yeah,
whether it's the people coming from tech or the people coming from banking, I was one of them. That's my
yeah,
essay
yeah.
that got me in. What was
Okay.
shocking to me was like, one, they accepted me on the basis of my essay, saying
Right.
that yes, that's the career goal we're supporting.
Right.
But two, in the week one or week two, we had like one of these private equity recruitment firms come and tell us, hey, if you're international, there's a very small chance that you'll get
You're
it. You
gonna
have to
get in.
network.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, that's ironical. Like, how do I use my time? Do I
Yeah.
go after my dream, which will only hire in the summer,
Yeah.
and take the risk of not having a job at the end of first year? Or
Yeah.
do I go get the first job, that I get?
Yeah.
So a lot of choices which you just have to make live, like while
Yeah.
you're in the program, which no one
Yeah.
tells you about. And you just have to experience it for yourself. Like, as I
Yeah.
say, what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
learn.
so you focus mainly on recruiting, and then there was subsequent focus on academics for you to do well as well. How did you balance social with academics and recruiting?
So that's why I would say first and second year were kind of different. I think first year
Hmm.
was more stressful for me,
Hmm.
where, it's like you're getting used to the class, you're getting used to being in an American classroom where
Hmm.
your point of view matters. In India, a
Yes.
lot of times, like at least when we were growing up in school and college, it didn't really matter that much, class
No.
participation. In
Yes.
schools now, it's important, and you can't just talk for the sake of talking, which
Yeah.
a lot of people did, right?
Yes.
That works
Yeah.
against you.
Yeah.
So it's about really learning how to think and participating smartly versus for the sake of it.
Yeah.
Um, so just like it was that pressure of like settling in, class
Yeah.
and recruitment, it was really overwhelming, I won't lie. But then Kellogg again, collaboration and all of that, like people don't make it feel cutthroat. And
Hmm.
there are all these activities and like classes, and the teachers are so supportive, they'll become a shrink for you instantly. So
Hmm.
it was easier to digest and process than, I don't know, I can't speak for other schools. Like
Man, I never
it was
had a
easy to
shrink
think through.
teacher, I can tell you. I
I'm
needed
telling
one,
you,
but I didn't have one.
I said professor, I can like give a call, Professor Julie Hennessy. If you ever go to Kellogg, she's like
Reach
everybody
out to
loves
her
her.
in case you need a shrink.
Yes,
Fair enough.
she
Okay,
she does that. Yep.
but I don't want to spend too much time on your internship, but I do want to talk about the fact that you were able to go to a different country and do internship. Are those opportunities widely available at Kellogg for you to do internships or future full-time opportunities to go in other countries?
Yes, they
Okay.
are. So I was looking at general management programs
Okay.
at that point, and as I said, like a lot of the American programs weren't open to internationals.
Yeah.
BT was one which was open, so I applied, and so it wasn't a strategic move to go to London,
Okay.
but it was just looked really interesting, and London was on my radar as a place I'd want to move to potentially after my MBA. I was
Yeah.
open to it, so it was sort of it just worked out really well for me. Um, and so it's like the general management programs are fairly limited to international students, but
Mm-hmm.
it like a lot of networking helps because
Hmm.
if you're like anyway, we'll come to that. But what was the second part of your question? Sorry.
Well, that's it. It was just, are there
Okay.
opportunities both in full-time and in internship to go abroad
International
from,
is
yeah.
limited.
Okay.
International is limited. Like if honestly, like you're very set on you want to go work in Europe after India, I would say explore a European business school. It makes more
That's right.
sense.
Okay.
Uh, yeah.
That's a perfect thing I wanted to get to. Um, I want to close out with a couple of questions, but I want to inform most students. So typically, the kind of companies that come on campus at Ross, for instance, that hire internationals, consulting firms, investment banks, a few general management programs. General management for most people listening is you get to rotate between multiple businesses. They can be in an industrials company or they can be in a telecom company, and you get to be part of their leadership programs, and then you get to manage the P&L of a certain business several years down the line. Or tech companies in various product management roles or business or product operations roles, which we learn about. These are typically companies that recruit. What are the major recruiters at Kellogg in
Um,
each of these industries, if you don't mind, that hire internationals?
Similar, the industries are similar
Mm-hmm.
focus, like a mix of a lot of consulting, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
marketing, a lot of no, so sorry, internationals is
Yeah.
consulting, investment banking, few general management, as you pointed out, few tech companies.
Mm-hmm.
But in those tech companies, like for example, let's say in Apple supply chain, it'll be open to internationals. But thing to note is in very functionally specific roles, prior experience matters.
Yes.
So if you're someone looking to change industry and function,
Yeah,
that,
it's
even though
challenging.
you're eligible, it's going to be
Yeah,
very difficult because someone who's done marketing or supply chain with HUL will be able to make an industry switch.
yeah,
So just having it open doesn't mean it's fair game for you.
yeah.
Um, we had tech companies, as I said. I'm trying to think. I think that was largely it. But like it's there's also the on campus versus off campus.
Hmm.
So I was one of those people, like in my first year, okay, two pieces of advice there.
Hmm.
One, do not get, like, I can't say this enough. Do not get sucked in by the fact that 50% of your class is applying to consulting or whatever the fad of your thing is, right? If you came in with, I want to do private equity, but oh God, they're not hiring me, let me do what everybody else is doing. That's
Yeah.
mistake number one, which 90% of the people make. I did
Yes.
that as well, right?
Yeah.
Because in that case, what you're doing is you're trying to go after something just because everybody else is doing it. And
Yeah.
two, if your heart is not really into it, you will
Yeah.
not do well.
You will not succeed well in
You will
networking
not.
or in the interview process. Yeah.
And last, it crushes your confidence. Like
Yeah.
honestly, realize like if you've got a great GMAT score and you've kind of made it to business school, you're pretty smart.
Yeah.
Don't let that sort of an experience, as someone has said to me once, like you're losing something that you didn't want in the first place,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you're letting that get to you. And that
Yes.
happens to all of us. So
Yes.
MBA can be a really, really challenging experience if you focus too much on the recruitment and then
Yes.
get depressed by things which you didn't want in the first place.
Yes.
So look out for the FOMO as it
Yeah.
comes to job search.
Fear of missing out.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, fear of missing out because it's
Yeah.
just very easy to get sucked into. And two, this sounds very like wishy-washy, but like seriously, if you really have a clear sense of what you want to do, wait it out. Don't be scared to wait it out. It'll take
Yeah.
like whatever, 2 or 3 months after
Yeah.
business school. Worst case, I graduated without a job, but I'm very happy where I am. Like
So, and
I
you
was
did it
very,
off campus, right?
I did off campus in my second
Okay.
year. For a lot of reasons, I decided not to go back to BT, and then it was like, okay, let's kind of look on campus. And then again, like moment you come back from your internship, recruitment is very brief as a second
Yes.
year student now. And it's
Yes.
like the second wave of a lot of people have accepted their offers,
Yes.
and they don't kind of, it's limited, the window. And
Yes.
then you're in this perpetual like this off-campus recruitment phase.
Yeah.
And that's my tip number two.
Yeah.
Alums are your best friends as long as you don't misuse those.
Yes.
I go back to my words of you should not have a sense of entitlement. It
Yeah.
should not be a transactional relationship with your alums.
Yeah.
Really invest in those relationships with a very genuine, hey, like don't just reach out to alums when you need a job.
Yes.
Reach
Don't
out
do
to them
that.
because you really want to understand what they're doing, learn about their experience,
Yes.
build on your first conversation, stay connected with them. And then at
Yeah.
some point, if something comes up, like they will reach out to you. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? If you've managed to invest in that relationship.
Yeah.
That was one thing that worked out for me in this off campus thing. Like, I'd really kind of reached out to people, and I had like one alum email his entire batch to find me a job, which is
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Like, but you really kind of, I'd networked really well with alums with like very genuine conversations about,
Yeah.
hey, I don't know what I want. I think
Yeah.
I want this, but like, what's your advice?
Yeah.
Ask people for advice, not necessarily, hey, here's what you owe to me, because nobody owes you anything.
Yeah. When
Um,
you ask for advice, they're more often they're more prone to giving a lot more help than you think they would, and you'd be surprised in many ways.
yeah,
I think this is really useful. I will add that don't discount when you get on campus just because there are campus recruiting activities, even if they're limited for internationals. Don't discount the networking and potential of getting an off-campus role. Many internationals and Indians especially have gotten off-campus roles and are extremely thrilled with it. And they
oh yeah,
consistently, the key factor there is that they've consistently networked in a non-transactional manner from the beginning, not just with
yep.
the motivation of, hey, it's deadline is here, I need a job, I'm desperate. They've
Yeah, or I'm
consistently
doing
done so
club
from,
X so I can reach out to Y and Z. Just again, goes back to authentic and goes back to just building genuine relationships. Your MBA
yeah,
should be about that because
yes,
that's also what comes in handy, like from a social point of view, right?
yes,
You could be a person you're like, oh, I want to hang out with 100 people because guess what? They're a big cool group.
Yeah.
versus like a few authentic relationships you want to take away with you. So
Yeah.
you create your own experience in so many
All right.
ways.
We're hitting the top of the hour. I know you need to go for class. Let's end by giving out closing advice to students. Either what is the biggest mistake they make when they contact you, or what do you wish you knew before you went into an MBA program that you can like, share with other people?
Um, I think before you go into an MBA, really think hard about why you want an MBA. And I'm not talking about specifically what job you'll get after it, but just have a legitimate reason for why you want an MBA. Don't do it because it's a fad or because friends are doing it or because you're getting married and you want to just move. Like, those should not be your reasons. Seriously. Have a legitimate reason for why you want to do it. Spend time investing in the culture to learn the culture of the schools you're applying to. It's so important because while you may make it to the school, the 2 years can be really hard if you've not picked your school well. You know, the fit, like you have to fit into the school, and the school's culture has to sort of fit into your life and your style. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's my number two. Three, alums, it's so important. Like networking in an authentic way is really important.
Yeah.
Don't just go, get sucked in by the FOMO when it comes to job. It's your career. You paid 200, 250 grand for it. So, you deserve to pick a job that you really want to do.
Yeah.
And it'll work out. Like, yes, it's super stressful. Invest in like solid relationships. Your friends
Yeah.
really come in like ways to kind of mentally be your pillars. So yeah, that's what I would say.
You have to really, really go with the intention of enjoying the experience, whatever the outcome,
Yes.
and that will make the MBA journey a lot smoother. Something that I learned from the hard way because I was focused always on the outcome. But
Yeah,
I thank you for your time. Thank you for
of
doing
course.
this. This is really good. I hope most people find this very useful, especially learning about Kellogg.
Yep.
It was
Thank
great to
you.
talk to you.
Bye. Great to talk to you as well.